Travelers meandering the United States will come across all types of towns. Some of the best ones, however, are the ones that you won't find anywhere else. There are a handful of towns strewn throughout the country that look like they've been zapped from another time and place. We don't yet have time travel technology, though nothing is stopping us from getting a taste of the past, thanks in part to small-town America. A few of these, like Williamsburg, are probably places you've heard of, but several others may be entirely new, like Mackinac Island or Lindsborg. They aren't boring just because they're practically stopped in time. Quite the opposite, in fact. We also specifically chose these locations to provide a wide variety of atmospheres, activities, and aesthetics. Although some of these are small cities rather than towns, they all have a population of less than 100,000. From the bygone days of the Wild West to romantic snapshots from Sweden, these dreamy destinations will surprise you. One of these time-stopped spots may even become your new favorite place. Also known as Little Bavaria, Frankenmuth, Michigan, is an utterly charming and must-visit Midwest destination. Rooted in the area's deep German heritage, Frankenmuth has taken on the appearance of a quaint Bavarian town. Drenched in German language, cuisine, and design, you'll feel transported across the pond to the Bavarian mountains. Founded in 1845 by a group of German immigrants, Frankenmuth adapted the heritage of its founders. Even over 175 years later, the town still embodies much of what its founders infused into it. Clearly, its dedication to the past Bavarian culture resonates with travelers, since Frankenmuth is a top vacation spot in Michigan. While the town has changed through the years, it has remained steadfast to elements of its past. Residents built a dam and mill in 1847, and one of the town's wool mills is the oldest one in continuous operation in the state, dating back to 1894. Frankenmuth is known historically for its milling, though the modern-day town is also famous for housing the world's largest Christmas store and its chicken dinners. One thing is for sure about Luckenbach, Texas: its days of population booms are truly in the past. With a population of 3 residents, this is the smallest of our time capsule towns. But while its everyday population is small, its reputation is mighty. Like the aforementioned Frankenmuth, Luckenbach was also founded by Germans, becoming a trading post in 1849. The literal one-horse town feels stuck in time because its central architecture is a historic saloon, which is still in operation, along with a dance hall. Although it's totally abandoned elsewhere, the town's central meeting spot is still the place to be, like it was over 100 years ago. Not to mention that when you are hanging out at the saloon, the surrounding trees are all over 500 years old, giving the area an even more historical feel. Even after spending just a little time in Luckenbach, you'll feel compelled to drink some moonshine in the starlight. You'll feel as though you've stepped back into a less hostile Wild West motif, less rootin' and more shootin' the breeze of town stuck in time intentionally. Williamsburg, Virginia, is the world's largest U.S. history museum. It has intentionally remained in the scope of colonial America to demonstrate how life was. Reenactors walk the streets in colonial garb to add to the time travel the more illusion. Obvious historical elements of all kinds of things. It's like just a fascinating place to be. As one of the country's first planned cities, it gives a glimpse into how early Americans developed settlements near the turn of the 18th century. And because it's also home to the College of William and Mary, you can walk in the footsteps of some of the country's early leaders. Alumni of the college include Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, and John Tyler. While New England gets a lot of attention for its historical ties to early America, St. Augustine's history actually goes back further than that. It was founded in 1565, over 50 years before the Pilgrims arrived. Because of that, the Spanish settlement was the first in the country that survived. Given its Spanish heritage, St. Augustine is full of colorful architecture influenced by Spanish settlers. Walking the cobblestone streets here will snap you back over 400 years. You can even visit the city's most famous historic landmark, the Castillo de San Marcos. This Spanish fort was built between 1672 and 1695 and is the oldest masonry fortress in the country. Nicknamed the Ancient City, it's easy to see how the country's oldest city transports you back in time. Beyond its historical architecture, other city highlights like the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum and the Leitner Museum will further demonstrate the area's rich history. Film nerds will appreciate the inclusion of Mackinac Island, Michigan, on this list. That's because Christopher Reeve's 1980 time-traveling film, Somewhere in Time, was filmed partly on island that seemingly stopped in time. However, anyone who visits Mackinac can experience its 1800s appeal as the island, which has banned cars, remains firmly planted in the Victorian era. Along with its historical charm, visitors can also enjoy Mackinac Island's fudge. It's to die for. Since cars aren't allowed, you can get around the island via horse-drawn carriage, on foot, or bicycle. Island guests can also stay in Victorian-era hotels to get a feel for life on the charming Midwestern island near the turn of the 20th century. Beyond its intentional attachments to the past, Mackinac is also home to several of the oldest buildings in the state, which date back even further. You can also visit Fort Mackinac, which was the site of the first domestic skirmish of the War of 1812. The fort still maintains 14 original buildings. Visitors can see into the island's war-torn past by attending one of the daily reenactments held here.